Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to come to Albert Lea. We had a nice plane ride yesterday. Had a nice drive from the airport down. Didn't see any green fields. Saw a lot of brown fields, you know. And it's great to talk to a bunch of livestock farmers, you know. And what I'm going to try to tell you is that we're all livestock farmers because we've got to manage the livestock underneath the soil. And those are the microbes, the earthworms, the bacteria, those kind of things. So as we go through the presentation, I think you'll see how we can manage these to our advantage and save some money, because I don't know how it is here, but Ohio yesterday, corn was $3.13 a bushel. And beans were like $7.85 and wheat was $3.29. So it's going to be tough to scratch out a margin of profit when you're paying $200 an acre for rent, you know. Just want to talk about optimizing your rotations, improving the soil health, and using a biological primer. And a biological primer is for my crop insurance people in Ohio, because they don't understand. We talk about cover crops. If I say cover crops, they say, well, you can't do this. You got to spray it 4 days after you plant. You got to do this and that. So I come up with calling a biological primer. I says, how's that sound? He says, what is it? I says, it's just something to prime the soil. Well, that'll be okay, David. So there's not a problem. You know, so just don't tell them you're using cover crops. Just call it a biological primer. Everything will be all right, you know. Because crop insurance, I think, is a disadvantage to the people that's trying to use cover crops. You know, that's my personal opinion. Just a shot of corn, I can grow some corn. Most of our soils are clay base. Bought a farm 2 years ago that had a organic reading of 0.1, a phosphorus reading of 13, a potash reading of 46. You know, that's where we're at. Our soils are wore out. They're yellow clays. But with cover crops in the forefront, you can see the peas and radishes. That was what's in that cornfield the year before. And we put 50 pounds of nitrogen on it, and we can produce a little better than 200 bushel corn. This happens to be a shot of Mars. Well, it's not really. You know, that's my neighbors. And I want to tell you, you know, that says 12/7. That should have said 11/7. I don't know, the camera jumped a month ahead. But he chiseled that after I cut his soybeans in October. Guess what we got, guys? We got no soil health. We got nothing going on here to keep the microbes and earthworms coming. This farmer has one earthworm every 9 foot. You know, on our farm, we have 36 to 40 earthworms every square foot. That's what makes a difference with infiltration. It's hard to grow a crop. Each year he loses more money and don't understand why. You know. He told me he's got 200 acres that he chiseled after I cut his beans. He told me it took 250-gallon diesel fuel to chisel that 200 acres. I don't know what he's going to have in it when he works it. Don't know what he'll have in it when he plows it, plants it. You know. Another neighbor. We're great NRCS people down there in Ohio. We love to do filter strips. We've been doing them for 10 years. Then he does his tillage. Guess what? They never changed anything above the buffer strip. So just imagine you got a 10-year-old boy walking around with a diaper that hasn't been changed for 10 years. You know, it's kind of full, and it's kind of oozing out. So guess what's happening in Ohio? The phosphorus and nitrogen readings from the buffer strips are higher today than they were when that whole field was being farmed. It's did its job, but now it's time to improve it. You know, this guy farms 10,000 acres. I stopped, he caught me taking a picture. I said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to use it in the presentation. And I says, I really appreciate you having a cover crop. You know, and he says, what are you talking about? And I says, that's an awful nice crop of your green corn growing there after you've harvested. It'll help control the soil. You know, that was his cover crop. From there we go to here, and this is ours. This is the right date, 11/14. This was planted on August the 23rd after wheat. You know, the greatest thing we ever did 4 years ago was find out that sunflowers makes those fields really look nice. The local farmers no longer call it a weed patch. You know? I got 6 grandkids, 3 of them work on the farm. The oldest one's 19, 2 of them in college. Last summer we had them close to the farm. We'd be baling hay or straw or doing something in the field or doing something around the barn, and all once the boys would be gone. So I put up with it about a week, and then one day they wasn't there, and they'd come back. I said, "What are you guys doing?" "Well, Grandpa, we went down to the end of the lane there because somebody was down in the field. We went down to talk to him about the sunflowers." "Well," I said, "that's great, boys." I says, "What'd you tell him?" He says, "I told him it cost him $5 to take pictures." You know? I guess, you know, they become little entrepreneurs. You know, they was doing pretty good. You know, it's funny. This field here had a picket fence, 2 bales of straw, 2 17-year-old girls in caps and gowns. You know, they wanted a picture. You know. Guess what that does? That feeds my herd. Where'd Matt go? Matt leave me? Okay. Matt, come here a minute. You know, we're going to go backwards just a little bit, if I can. What I want to do is show you what Matt looks like being a conventional farmer. You know, he's had his lunch and supper for 70 days. That's the only time the corn and beans grow. You know. From there we go to here. Come on, boy. You know, here now you're looking at me. You know. And I've ate 365 days. So just think how my microbes look. You know? Just think, he's got 1 300-pound starving calf in his soil. I have 4 1,200-pound calves with 4 500-pound calves walking beside them. That's the difference in their soils. That's what cover crops can do for you. You know. Okay, thank you, Matt.
I got to go eat some more.
Okay. We started in 1971. There hasn't been a planter or a drill made that we haven't had on the farm. We've tried them all. We've probably made 10,000 mistakes and only had 3 or 4 good successes. You know. But we started with clovers. Worked pretty well. Come on, boy. Sweet clover works real well if you're in a long rotation where you got at least 18 months there to let it grow to get the roots and get the nitrogen. We were looking at ways we could cut cost. Crimson clover is one we really like. Does a fine job, you know. Faba beans, like them in a mix. Don't like them by themselves very well. We like them because they tend to bloom. They'll bring a little nutrients when they bloom, or lose a little nutrients, but the beneficial insects they bring is a big benefit to us. You know. Cowpeas, you heard about warm season legumes or warm season plants like corn and soybeans. Cowpeas is a warm season legume. A ½ inch of water in Ohio, 100-degree weather, that's all they need. They'll grow all year. You know. Sun hemp. If you've not seen it, it's an African plant. 5 years ago, I was at a meeting like this. Nice colored fellow stood up and talked about his farm. Talked about sun hemp. Showed a picture of it. He planted it in April. In October, it was 25 foot tall, had a stalk 4 inches in diameter, had nodulations the size of golf balls. You know, when he got done talking, I went over and said, "I got to have some of that." He says, "Well, Mr. Brandt, I'll send it to you if you'll pay the freight." I said, "Fine," I gave him my address, you know. About 6 months later, UPS comes roaring up her driveway, throws his bag out, walks over and he says, "Mr. Brandt, you owe me $436. I said, "What's that for?" He said, "That bag of seed." He said, "That's a freight." I guess I should have asked the guy what it was going to cost me, you know? So we planted it, you know. Disappointing. It only got 5 foot tall. It only got nodules the size of pennies, you know. I forgot I took it out of the area. It's used to climate and rain, but it still grew and does a lot of work. When it's 5 foot tall, it has a 5 foot root in the ground. Guess what that does to compaction? You know, hairy vetch is a nice, cool season legume. Builds a lot of nitrogen. Chickling vetch works real well for 30 days. After 30 days, it blooms. Why don't I want it to bloom? Because it's moving the nitrogen from the roots to make a seed pod. We use it if we have to plant it in November, because it won't bloom, it won't grow that long. We use it so we can plant it in the spring, because it's usually there only 45 days before planting. You know. Come on. Austrian winter pea is our pea we go with. It's well adapted to any kind of soils, well adapted to any kind of weather. Does really well. It tends to have lots of things I like. This happened to be sown after wheat at 30 pounds the acre. That's about $21 worth of seed cost. Here's what we're after. We want that taproot right there. We want nodulation here, there, and there. Guess what that means? When our corn comes out of the ground as a seedling, it's dark green because the roots is growing into that nodule right there at the surface. When the corn's knee-high and it's time to side dress, where's the roots? In that mass right there. In August, when the corn's telling me how much it's going to weigh per bushel, it's getting nitrogen right there, 9 inches deep. We have not sold a bushel of corn for 3 years that weighed less than 60 pounds off our farm. I think the reason is because of our cover crops. This is a study we did on our own. And what we do, we plant all these varieties of legumes in a field. We start out with 12 rows with 100 pounds of nitrogen, 12 rows with 50 pounds of nitrogen, 12 rows with 150 pounds, and 12 rows with 200. We look at the yield of corn. That's how we determined how much nitrogen we could get from our legumes that we're planting. Just imagine if we take hairy vetch, crimson clover, cowpeas, sun hemp, winter peas, we can produce over 300 pounds of nitrogen in a growing period from August till December. How much is available? About half of that for the first year. The other half is available the second and third year. If we take on a new farm, it has lots of surface compaction normally. We like buckwheat. Buckwheat is a fine root plant, grows about 4 inches deep. When you terminate it, it gives off an acid from the root that goes through the profile, breaks down the phosphanic rock that's unavailable, and will bring up 15 to 20 pounds of phosphorus per year by using buckwheat. That's a pretty nice savings. About a $7 cost, get about a $27 return. Sunflowers, you can see how nice they are. We found out they bring up zinc and copper. We're zinc deficient in Ohio, save me another $20 an acre. You know. If we got animal manure or human sludge, we are in the fastest growing county in the state of Ohio. For the last 13 years, our county has lost 4,560 acres a year. That's 46,000 acres of cropland, prime cropland, went to houses. We have a human waste problem rather than an animal problem. They want to get rid of it. We use brassicas. We can spread the waste on it. The brassicas collect it and it won't run off, because that usually has lots of nitrogen and a lot of phosphorus. Going to talk about peas and radishes. We use a white planter. Doesn't matter what color it is as long as you can find the plates. The only one that won't do it's John Deere. They don't want it to work that way. You know. Once you put a pea plate in, or a soybean plate, use a sugar beet plate beside it. 15-inch rows of, or 30-inch rows of peas, 30-inch rows of radishes. They grow 22 inches deep, the tuber. The root's 34 inches more deep. If you're really good and ambitious, like I am, you can tell. And you dig them out and sell them for $2.50 a piece. You know, to your animals, it's in Columbus, you do all right. I don't dig very many. Don't have a motor on it, you know. But can you imagine, look at the leaves on those trees. This is a September picture, and it's green. And it's green clear until January. That tuber is my storage tank. The reason I say that, I'll show you the results here in just a minute. As it grows, it lifts the soil. If you put 2 pounds the acre on in a 15-inch row, that puts them 4.5 inches apart each seed, just like a corn plant. As that grows, it raises the soil 3 to 4 inches. So what do I have? I have a strip till machine. I didn't have to pull it, didn't have to buy it, didn't have to put diesel fuel in it. It'll freeze off in January. Here's our pea and radish field. Look how nice those are. Those leaves are big. They'll kill all the broadleaves that's there, suppress the grasses, reduces our herbicides by 50%. If you got livestock manure or other kind of problems you got, just plant it, put oats with it rather than a nitrogen fixing plant. Let the oats capture. Let the radish capture what you're putting on. Maybe you got a bad year with a corn crop. You guys probably never have them out here. I see the soil's really dark and black and probably goes 300 bushel corn. But you know, if for some reason you only get 100 and you put 200 pounds in on, plant peas and radishes, they'll capture all that's left over. It won't leak out. You know. Just wanted to show you how deep they go in the soil. Plus I wanted to show you how granular our soils are. Just imagine that was yellow clay in 1971. Look how dark it is today, 24 inches deep. Look at the roots holding those clods of soil. That's what we want. We have a taproot in March that died out, it's gone. It's got a lot of sugar, so guess what? The earthworms go there. That's where they live in the wintertime. They like that sugar. They make more earthworms and more earthworms because there's something there for them to eat. You know, population goes up. Here's what it looks like in the spring. No herbicide. You know. Still a lot of residue there. That's wheat residue from 110 bushel wheat. Manage the wheat, you can make good money. 60, 50 bushel wheat, don't cut it. If you get it to 100, you do pretty well. And here's the nutrients we found in a 5-year study with The Ohio State University. And they said this is our average from 4 fields every year for 5 years. Everybody can see there's enough nutrient there to produce 200 bushel corn in some excess. You know. And that's what we're able to do by using covers. We're going to change gears and talk about soybeans. I think if you're not using the rye in your corn and bean rotation, you're stupid. I shouldn't say it that way, but that's the way I feel about it. Mainly because Beck Seed Farm in Indiana and Ohio did a yield trial. They had 50 varieties of their soybeans. They put them in rye, and they put them in conventional till. It was published last fall. All their beans and rye was 6.3 bushel better than where they were conventional tilled. You know. Now, whether it's ryegrass or cereal rye, doesn't really matter. You know. But if you could get 6 more bushel of beans, wouldn't you think about changing? That's $54 an acre, guys. You know? 100 acres is $540 more. That may be the profit margin. You know, think about it. You can still do whatever you want to go to corn. But you've protected that soil from the time you harvest the corn till you plant the soybeans. You know. You can do a lot with it. In 1971, 30-20 6-row corn planter, planting soybeans. The fertilizer's in the box because we planted corn the day before. It rained. It was too wet to plant the corn. I moved to the rye field. We're planting corn. You may see a little mud on the wheel right here, but guess what? Didn't matter. That rye still took an inch of rainfall out a day, and we had 65 bushel beans in 71. You know. Here this was this year. This happened to be canola, and we're sowing soybeans. Use a crop roller, roll it down. Didn't have to worry about a herbicide. Things will work. Come on. This is my son. I give him a 20-foot tube before, screwed a 1-inch angle iron to it, put 2 bungee cords on it, and he had a terrible time. You know, give him a 4-footer, makes an excellent crop roller. You know, a cheap one, $3.30. That's all you got to spend if you want to use a crop roller. Or you can do this. This is $250, and we have this for our local 5-acre house lot people that want to grow a garden. We lease it to them for $100 a day. You know, they roll the crop down, they think it's wonderful. Or you can go this route. This is a 15-footer. This was sorghum Sudan we rolled down in August to plant wheat into in September. You know? Or you can do like this. This is our 20-footer. We plant everything green. Roll afterwards. Soybeans are already planted. Why don't we roll before? Our weatherman don't get paid enough. He'll tell me it'll be fair for 3 days. I'll roll down 100 acres of rye, and damn if it don't rain 4 inches. You know? Once you roll that rye down, it's like putting a tarp on that field. What you do with it, you plant wheat afterwards. That's in the fall. That's how long it takes to dry out. You know. So we learned that lesson, so we plant green. Lots of different rollers. Maybe this will work. Never has, but we'll find out. Whoop, nope. Went the wrong direction. Oh, there it is. Come on. Well, anyhow, it's supposed to work. But that's a best way roller. That's a 36-inch diameter roller. To make their crop roller work, they put angle irons on it. Not very effective. You know. This is the I&J roller, or the one from Organic People to help design. This is a 10-way blend that we sold in North Carolina to a vegetable grower. He was just going to build his soil. So he sowed that last fall. We went there in May with that crop roller, 10-foot roller. There was about 35 guys there. On the other side of that tractor, there's 550 acres of plastic laid every 8 foot in the field. Cost them $5,000 to build the ridge and lay the plastic in a conventional tomato plant. We rolled this. He says, well, we'll wait till it dies, we'll plant some more cover crop. I says, no. I says, go get me some tomatoes. He says, how you going to plant them? I said, you got a transplanter like you do on the plastic? He said, yeah. Hook it to the tractor. We planted tomatoes in there. They put 250 tomatoes in that 5-acre piece. This year, those tomatoes made 20 pounds more tomatoes per plant than they did on the plastic. Today, there's 750 acres of cover down there. There's no more plastic. You know, that's how impressed they were. Don dealers out here. This is a Don roller. Goes on the front of a corn planter. Works fairly well till you get into stuff that's 7, 8, 9 foot tall. Then it tends to wrap. You know, normally this stuff ain't that big. This year it was for us. I really like these on planters. They're a little bit more expensive on a smaller planter than a regular crop roller. But if you're in a 12 row and bigger, they're cheaper. Because by the time you buy a transport for a 40 or 50 foot crop roller, you got a lot of money in just the transport unit, you know. They work real well. I took the disc blades off and we put a 7-inch roller in there instead. Because I do not want to move any soil. And I think you'll see on this picture, see it's moved the soil here and we can have erosion. And on our farm, 85% of our farm is highly erodible on from 10 to 22% slopes. And if we left that open like that, there'd be a ditch 30 inches deep every 30 inches, just from the rainfall we get. Rye, rolled. This is 2013. No herbicide, 79 bushel beans. Again, there's our cover crop with radishes, winter peas. I like diversity. I think the ideal diversity is between 6 and 12 plants being used at the same time. I still like to see 35 to 40 seeds per square foot. We're looking at probably $32 to $35 an acre, depending on what species you pick. But you can save as much as $100 in chemicals and nutrients. You also can build organic matter. This amount of cover will build a 0.5% organic matter a year. You know, no problems. This is ryegrass and crimson clover. I'm a very poor manager of ryegrass. I like ryegrass. 2 or 3 pounds in the mix works fine. I can take care of that. When we put 8 or 10 pounds of ryegrass in it, and because we plant green, it gets big. Our ryegrass will be between knee and waist high. You know, when we're planting. Guess what? I can kill it. I can burn it off. Round up like we're supposed to. We'll burn it off. 4 weeks later, it grows back because we didn't kill the root. You know, because it was too big. Because it was in the reproduction stage. If you get it when it's 12 inches or shorter, it's not a problem. You know. But I think if you kill it that soon, you're probably killing it the 1st of April, middle of March. You lose 25 to 6 weeks of growth of that cover crop, but you could be feeding the microbes. You know, if you don't feed the microbes, they get a little thin. Just remember how I look. Got to make them happy. You know. Here we're planting into it. No problems. Look how nice that planter looks. That's a 95 corn planter. It looks like it's brand new because it don't get any dust on it. You know? This is my high boy cedar. Man, I'm going to tell you one thing. My wife has been after me for 10 years to have a new couch. You know? I made a mistake. I should have bought a couch before I bought this machine. You know? So if you're going to do things that sometimes your wife don't like very well, make sure you talk it over with her. But this was an old Walker sprayer I found sitting in the weeds after a meeting like this. And I stopped and the guy said, I says, what do you want for that? He says, you give me $20,000, you can have it. Hell, I couldn't turn that down. We hadn't run for 5 years, but I didn't care. So I got it home. We took the tank off of it. We took the wet boom off of it. That's a Montag air system box in the back. That's 36 drops, or 36 drops, so we can do 90 foot at a time. We can go into 12.5 foot tall standing corn and blow a cover crop. We can go through soybeans, blow a cover crop. When we go through beans, we lose 1.5 bushels the acre by wheel tracks. We go through corn, we lose a half a bushel per acre. You know. Well, we found out we can do a lot more with it. If we have a poor stand of wheat, you can see that wet hole right there. We decided we'd keep the wheat, try to make it produce about 60 bushel. And this is just, you can see there's no heads there. So we put 200,000 seeds per acre of soybeans blowed in there with a high boy. We cut the wheat off. The wheat made 72 bushel. The beans were 18 inches tall. They made 65. Not too bad. You know? A lot of opportunities, especially when you look at things. If it's too wet for the big tractor and the fertilizer spreader, and this is in March, and this just, I don't like to have my fields uncovered. This is one we didn't get to. So here I am in March of 2013, sowing a cover crop with a 20 horsepower tractor with a 500-pound spreader. You can see it's kind of, you know, it's early. This is all vertical till back here. Here we are, no-till soybean ground, sowing our cover crop. Here's our cover crop. There's the corn. You know, guess what? We got 50 pounds of nitrogen as a bonus from that short of cover. That was 50 pounds I didn't have to buy. That's 60 cents a pound, that's $30. I had $15 in the cover crop that I sowed out there. And guess what? I didn't have to use herbicide because it was a cool season cover crop. When it got to 75 degrees, it died. You know. Here's the results from a high boy. 5 or 6 different kind of clovers into corn before shelling. And that's what we got afterwards. Lots of nitrogen for next year's corn. We have a 4-way blend. When guys just call up and say, what do I use? I don't care what I'm going to do. We try to give them this one. They get used to it. It's got a lot of water, a lot of winter peas. It's got radishes. It's got crimson clover. And it's got about a pound of rape. You know. If you look where I'm standing, it's hip high. 16,000 pounds of biomass. At that picture. Here's radishes. A little bit of foxtail. That's my warm season grass. You know, it'll crowd it out. It's a grass. Hold the soil. Winter peas. 6-way blend. This is 9-10. This is a month after planting. Here's a 10-way blend. You can't very well see it, but right back here, there's 500 homes. We farmed that 5 years ago. 275 acres, they put 500 homes on it. Really upset me. Guess what? I figured out a year later, then people have cash. You know, so we grow pumpkins and sweet corn and corn shocks, 24-inch bale of straw with a piece of plastic bag around it for $7. You put on an old pair of bibs with a hole in the knee, set on a straw bale by the gate, and just count what they got in their trunk. You know? Sometimes, guys, if you're fortunate enough to be in public, you might not have to grow corn and beans, you know, if you're fortunate. Come on, baby. This is pearl millet. Not supposed to grow east of the Mississippi. That's a sorghum sedan. This is sun hemp. Got warm enough to make it bloom this year. And there's 345 people that came to my farm for a field day. Standing out in this field. Can you imagine the diversity we have here? Because what I want to show you, there's my woodlot. Is every one of those trees the same size? Is every one of those trees the same variety? So why do we want to just grow one species? Let's mimic Mother Nature. Let's mimic what we're doing. So that's what we're doing here. We got talls, mediums, and shorts. We had root growth 6 foot deep in that soil. Ten-way mix, high legume. I sent a sample of this soil to Rick Haney at Texas to do the Savita test on. He brought it back, sent it back to me, told me there was 1,150 pounds of nitrogen in that field. I felt pretty good about that, you know. Come on. We try to plant some flowering plants. I used to call them weeds until my daughter-in-law straightened me out. And she says when they bloom, they bring beneficial insects. So we have a few of these that we put in our mixes. We have 3,332 beneficial insects on our farm. We found that out 7 years ago. We have 32 harmful ones. The guy that was doing the sweep says, what do you want to use an insecticide for when there's only 32 of them that's going to cause you any problems? Well, I says, I guess you got a point. So for 7 years, we've not used a fungicide or insecticide. We buy corn that don't have treatment on it. You know, saves about $30 a unit. How thin can it be? That's pretty thin, but that's thick enough. It's covering the soil, keeps erosion down, does a real good job. This is my high carbon mix. We pick up a farm that has less than 1% organic matter. That mix will give me 1% organic matter next year. There's 31,000 pounds of biomass in that mix. You know, that's what we like to see. In December, that's what it looks like. You thought it all died, turned brown. Hairy vetch, crimson clover, radishes. Cool season legumes growing underneath there. And they're there all winter long because you got that cover on top of it keeping that ground from freezing so hard. Holding the snow up. This is my Archuleta mix. This was planted on August the 1st in 2012. In 2012, Ohio was the driest year it ever had. We had 8.8 inches of rain for the annual rainfall event in Ohio. No rain in June, no rain in July, no rain in August. We planted this stuff after wheat on August the 1st. This is 9/23. You know what's wrong with that picture? There should be about 50 black Angus cattle rather than that big boy standing in there, you know? What made it nice? It all winter killed. That's a foot thick biomass. Do we have trouble planting into it? No, because it just falls apart when the fluted coulter hits it. We sell this mix to a lot of organic farmers because that way they don't have to worry about herbicides, don't have to worry about weeds. They can quit doing their tillage, they can quit doing their cultivation. You know. These are some of the roots that we have. Just wanted to show you some fungus. Come on. Look at that. That's what you call healthy soils. That's what we're feeding. That's the herd feeding our soils underneath. Everybody says, well, if you use cover crops, how do you know how much nitrogen you get? Well, this is done by The Ohio State University again. The red bar right there is no-till, 5 years of no-till without cover. And each one of these are different cover crop mixes. This is 2 inches deep. This is 10 inches deep. What this says is at 10 inches deep, on August 22nd, there was still 210 pounds of nitrogen in the soil for those roots. Come on. We like to talk about organics because they're supposed to be better for us. I'm going to try to get started talking to you about nutrient-dense grains. As we improve the soil and quit using commercial-made fertilizers, maybe use not as much, maybe just use a little. This is from a study 2 years ago. No fertilizer, my corn had 9.1 protein. Half-rate fertilizer had 8.6. With fertilizer it had 7.7, and this was with cover crop. There's a blank there because I used to say neighbor's corn, 5.1 protein, conventional. And he saw the slide and he told me to take that off of there. He didn't like to be picked on, he said. Just imagine what 9% protein corn means when you're feeding hogs. It's 27 cents more a bushel. That's what it means. If we feed healthier livestock and we eat healthier meat, I'm assuming we'll be more healthy. At least that's what it tells me. Work with local FFA chapters because I think the future's in our young people. You know, so one chapter has 60 acres, another chapter has 30. You know, I just go up and let them use the planter. I set in the tractor so nobody runs over anybody, but they get to guide it. They get to run the combine to harvest it. What we do, we get them all the varieties of corn that somebody will give us to use so they don't have much seed cost. So 4 years ago, a young man come to him and he says, it's my turn to drive, Mr. Brandt, but he says, you got soybeans in that white planter and every one of them rows. And I said, yeah. He said, why is that? I said, I was planting beans before I come here. Well, did you ever think about planting soybeans with corn? And I just kind of walked back to the tractor and crawled in the cab. And kid come and got in his cab and he took off and he says, Mr. Brandt, he says, I didn't even make you mad. Well, I says, I'll tell you what, you didn't make me mad. I'm just disappointed I didn't think about it. You know? And I didn't think much about it. We planted. There they are. That's in June. Here's another picture of them in June. You can see the residue from last year's wheat crop. Here's this year at our farm, because this field didn't have a cover crop. This has no starter fertilizer on it, has no nitrogen on it. Here was the results we found 4 years ago. The top 4 varieties had soybeans between the rows. We moved 12 rows down in the field, planted them same 4 varieties, and put 140 pounds of nitrogen on it. We lowered the yield because we put nitrogen on. Must have. It's over 200 bushel where the peas were, or where the soybeans were, versus 125 where the nitrogen's used. I wouldn't think the soil would have changed that much in 24 rows. You know. So maybe that's the thing to think about. Maybe that's some way to figure out how to do something different. So, you know, I'm always thinking outside the box. So here's a thin stand of cover crop that was sowed really late. I thought, well, hell, if it works in soybeans, why wouldn't just a regular cover crop work? Well, guess what? I forgot we used warm season species. When it warmed up, they canopied the corn and killed it. That was a bust. So I do have problems. You know, I make mistakes, you know. We plant radishes with winter wheat, and we can pick up about 6 bushels of wheat if we put a pound of radishes in the drill. That's a hard thing to do. It's really tough to get those radishes evenly dispersed in a wheat box. What we do, we put 45 bushels of wheat in, we put 45 to 60 pounds of radishes on the top, close the lid and take off. It eventually gets mixed up. That's the kind of stands we get, you know. Is it important to share what we're doing? I think it is. The fellow with the tie is the ambassador from France. Ambassador of Agriculture from France came to our farm. Rattan Lau, in charge of the agronomy department of the Ohio State University. The Brazilian agronomist beside him, and Dr. Lafik Islam from Piketon Research Farm, that does all of our research work for us, was there. Sharing ideas, trying to help other farmers to get as good and better than we are. This is our soils pit. If you look right down here, this is our Cardington clay-based soils that should be up here. In 1971, it looked like that when you dug a pit. This pit was dug in October of this year. You can see how the roots is coming. You can see how the dark soil is coming down. Right there is the bottom of it at 37 inches. Through root channels and earthworm holes, we're able to move that organic matter. We started right there at 0.5%. Right there is 8% organic matter in 40 years. We can do it faster than that, guys. We found out. 8% organic matter means I can hold 22 inches of water during the growing season. I don't care if it don't rain. You know. There they are, 71, 2014. That's all I have. Try to answer any questions you got, and hope this has been educational and entices you to try some things that are offered through NRCS and some of the programs. I think that's a good way to get started because you don't have much funds invested. Normally their cost share will pay for the cover crop seed. Yes, sir.
So when you're planting corn, you run in a single coulter in front of your planter unit?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any problems at all trying to close your seed trench?
Question was, do I use a single coulter in front of the seed unit? And that is yes. And do I have problems closing the seed trench? Not normally, because our soils are fluffy. We use rubber press wheels to close the slot. But I guess this is kind of, I'm not caring whether the slot's closed or not. Because we have enough residue on the surface, it don't matter. The soil won't dry out. You know. We try to do the best we can do. But yes, there's some times that we do not get it closed. You know.
So you have slugs?
I used to. In 1990, our farm was known internationally for having to be in the slug capital of the world. We had two professors from Ohio State come down, and they come down during corn was about 4 foot tall, and every plant of corn they looked at had over 400 slugs on it. You know. Yes, we used to have, had deadline bullet money. That's $45, $50 an acre. We've done 28 out of the sprayer at dark. We've used a pound of salt mixed with 10 gallon of water. What works the best? 2 95-degree days. You know? And I'll tell you what, a corn plant can survive a lot of problems. You know, these plants look like cigars. That corn still made 147 bushels an acre. You know. Now, yes, we probably lost some yield, but we didn't have, you know, we're not running on yield. We're running on profit per acre, guys. Last fall, I had $1.97 in my corn and $1.17 in my beans. You know. My neighbor's corn had $7.30 in his corn. He didn't make much money this year. You know.
So the slugs, you don't have problems with slugs?
No, we don't have problem with slugs because we use the radish. The radish kind of fumigated the soil, which actually helped kill about 50% of them. And now we have crabbit beetle. Crabbit beetle. It's a beetle that survives on slugs. If you come to our farm and get a shovel full of soil, you'll find 25 or 30 earthworms and 2 crabbit beetle. You know.
So you increased the rate of radish in your front crop mixes then?
We've lowered them down to 1 pound.
1 pound.
Yeah.
And that's helped with the slug?
That has helped with the slugs.
Okay. Because you know, when you talked about closing that seed trench, see, that's something that happened to our guys this year. The people that couldn't close the seed trench
Right.
in their soybeans, when they're planting soybeans, and slugs dropped in that trench
And ate the seed.
and had a banquet.
Yep.
Followed that open trench all the way for,
Yeah.
all that.
And what they really didn't, they actually what they did, they ate the seed coat, because the seed, when the slug eats that seed coat, it will not germinate, plain and simple. You know.
Well, they're eating everything.
Well, yeah, but it starts by eating the seed coat. And if they do get up, then they eat the leaves. Just imagine, guys, the reason why you have slug problems, the reason why we leave things green, slugs do not like corn because of the hair under the leaf. But if it's all brown for 2 weeks before the corn comes up, and they look like Matt, rather than looking like me, they're going to eat the damn corn. You know? So if you have something green there growing, and you know you're going to have slug problems because you're out there looking, Let that green cover crop grow just about another 2 or 3 days longer to get that heat cycle built up, and then kill that cover. You know? Keep it green. I've seen slugs on winter peas. I've seen slugs on radishes, and they will not be on the corn. But as soon as that radish and peas dies, where's the slugs go? Somewhere where it's green. You know? Yes, sir.
With your high boy sprayer that you redid, when do you interseed in your corn and your wheat?
Well, I would like to do it at V5, V6, V7. 9 times out of 10, we end up at R4 and R5, just a tossling. You know? Because the guys can't make up their mind what they want to do.
So do you just broadcast that?
We blow it between the rows. We have a 5-foot drop on that machine. So actually we're blowing it below the ear set. So it never gets tangled up in the leaf surface.
But not everything will grow if you just lay it on the ground, or is your cover?
The cover underneath that ground will let it grow. We'll let it grow. And with our air seeder, the volume of air coming out of there, we're running about 50 mile an hour wind pressure out of each one of those tubes. You know, so it will push it down through that residue. Now it won't push it into the soil, but you know, we get those dewy mornings, the dew drops off of the leaf, runs down there, gets that seedling damp, it sprouts and grows right on the surface. You know. Some interesting things this year at the other FFA plot. We had a 60-acre field. 30 of it was conventional, 30 of it was no-till. Let the kids running. We had the combine set to give us fuel consumption per hour. On the conventional side, we were shelling 217 bushel corn, taking 13.5 gallon per hour to run the combine. The same 8 rows in the no-till that run 227, it took 8 gallon diesel fuel. 4 gallon savings just because the soil was firmer. You know, in soybeans, you got a rye cover. You can save 2 gallons an hour on your combine because the header's riding on that cover rather than the bare soil. It pushes easier. Those things all add up to money at the end of the year. You know, the little things is what counts.
How many pounds per acre do you run, do you see the rye cover and beans?
In our case, we're using, with our high boy, we use 45 pound. If we're drilling in, we're at 30. If we use an airplane, which we don't anymore since we got the high boy, we would be at 60. The thing we want to be careful is we don't want our covers to be too thick. We want to be able to have some sunlight and wind to get down to our soils. Because if you've got 100 pound of rye, you've got 100% ground cover, and if it's raining and it's cloudy, it won't dry out very well. But if it's sunshine and wind blowing, it'll get down between the plants and dries out quicker. Yes, sir.
Two questions for you. Have you ever had your cover crop get too tall in your soybeans that when you're cutting it, it interferes with the cutter bar? And the other question is when you're using the planter, planting 2 different species, changing the plates and that, are you more picky about your seed size or planter speed or any of that?
Okay, the question was, do we have trouble with covers at harvest time? And I guess I can answer that real easy. Yes, we do. If we don't roll them, the rye will be dead, but it'll probably be 18 inches tall. If it's a really dewy morning, you don't go there. You can't cut them beans. If you use a crop roller, it's laying flat, no problem. And we found this year by not rolling the cover, it cost us 4 bushel of beans. Everywhere we rolled the cover, our beans were 4 bushel better than where we just left it stand. He wanted to know about twin row planting or every other row planting. They really don't matter to me because we're planting either soybeans in one box or winter peas or anything of that size, cowpeas, sun hemp. They'll all go through that same plate. and then we use a sugar beet plate so that we can get hairy vetch, radishes, canola, rape through that plate. Now, when you go putting 4 or 5 different species the same size seeds in a box, you will not get simulated seeds. You may have 5 radishes and one rape or something like that, but it don't really matter what you're trying to do. You're just trying to get that diversity out there. But if you use 2 species, every one of them's where they belong. You know, the winter peas are 2.5 inches apart, and the radish is 4. The reason that happened was the soybean plate was 120 cell, and the sugar beet plate was a 45. So all the shaft speed stayed the same. You know. Yes, Don.
We had several megastorms in Minnesota this year. How does the no-till and cover crop systems help you get into the field after one of these events?
Well, if we got rye in the field, it's growing out the moisture. Our infiltration is about 4 times better than in a conventional field. At home, we can infiltrate somewhere around 5.5 inches of water an hour and still run on the soil. So the cover crops really help on that point. You know. Again, oh, go ahead.
When you plant buckwheat on your soil that hasn't been, conventional tilled soil, how long do you feel that effect lasts? Multi-year?
Usually the effect of buckwheat lasts about 2 years. Right. But by the second year, we're putting the multiple species cover in there, so we keep seeing the changes. Well, again, I want to thank you for inviting me to come. It's been a pleasure to talking to all of you. On April the 5th at our house, I would invite you to come to us and see our farm, because we'll have our field day, and we'll be talking about pasturing, cover crops, how to get them established, and how much nutrients they will put there for that meeting in April. Yes?
Have you done any studies with soil temperature and germination?
Well, I think what we have to do in Ohio, and of course, I guess I'm about 800 miles from there, so I don't know what happens here, but we find that we have to wait a little bit in the spring. I would like to start planting corn when the soil temperature is about 58 to 60 degrees, and we see the same corn yields from that soil temperature on a no-till and a cover crop situation as the guys that's planting April 15th and waiting 3 weeks for the corn to come up. The secret about no-till and cover crop is you got to get that crop that you're planting up. You got to get it up quick so diseases and insects don't work on it. Once it gets to sunlight, it'll grow faster and those things stay away.
So you're a corn soybean producer, and you have
And some wheat.
wheat, corn, soybean.
Yes.
So after wheat, you're doing the multi-species.
Yes, sir. Right. Then corn. Then beans. But we'll have a cover crop between the corn and the beans.
Yeah.
You know, so we have 5 crops in 3 years.
Yeah. So do you do B6 seeding of annual ryegrass in corn?
Yes, or cereal rye.
Oh, cereal rye too?
Yeah. Cereal rice, clovers. Most of the things we're doing for beans, to go to beans, would be cereal rye, radishes at 1 pound, rape at 1 pound, Ethiopian cabbage at 1/2 pound. Trying to get lots of brassicas in there. At V6.
So what happens to that mix then when the corn canopies?
It just goes dormant. It just sits there. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how thick the corn is. We've done it up to 42,000, and it'll still survive.
42,000 population in corn?
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, it looks bad. It gets weak. It gets kind of yelly, but it'll still be there. And as soon as plant turns brown or the sunlight gets down there to turn dark green, it'll probably be about 5 or 6 inches tall at harvest. You know. A week after harvest, it's 2 foot tall. Yes.
What about pre-emerge herbicide on that, like you're talking about now?
Well, we're not using very much. That's why we can get by with it. You know, most everything is post if we need it. Yes.
Talking about this overseeding, what did your crop insurance company say about that?
Don't call me for a claim. Exactly.
I'd like to make that clear because I'm the one that got raked over the coals this year because I told my insurance company that I was interceding, and rain and hail of Des Moines slapped me with a quality control audit and a whole ball of wax and just really treated me like shit. Just remember, your insurance agent is not your best friend, or the company he represents is not your best friend.
Right.
It was all within the RMA regulations.
Yes.
Perfectly fine in doing it, but the insurance companies are a big anti-cover crop at the B6 or B4. You want to either make sure you check with your insurance company or don't tell your insurance.
They have less of a problem at reproduction stage because they have lesser problem with it. And that's the reason I say I don't dislike crop insurance, but in 40 years that we've been farming, we have never had a crop that would have triggered any kind of crop insurance payment. You know?
I think with the advancement of no-till and the cover cropping, you get to the point where you're not as concerned about a crop failure because you kind of built in.
You built that insurance into the soil. Yes.
That's something that takes some time, and it also takes a certain comfort level
Right.
to take out crop insurance.
Yeah, well, unless it hails.
Well, unless it hails, right.
Better build that protection in that hail protection. Hail.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
you can always get hail insurance. I'm talking about like revenue.
Sure, it's right. Yes.
The crop insurance, you know, I was lucky, I had a great agent, and I talked with him from day one, and he was on board. He could have easily been on the opposite side of the fence, and made my help, kind of like it sounded like you had. But, you know, I think
Every agent's different.
I am the most incompetent agent you've ever seen.
Yeah. But I guess that's the reason, you know, I'm not saying you don't need crop insurance. I'm not trying to talk you out of that. But they put so many restrictions on, and I think, I really shouldn't, I'm going to tell you anyhow, because that's just the way I am. I think crop insurance makes farmers lazy. Because you know when you go to bed at night, you got some kind of protection. You know, you got something. And maybe you need that to go to sleep. I don't know. Well, the banker does. Or you got to prove to that banker you don't need it because you're doing something else to improve the soils. You know. But I think if we had no crop insurance, you know, you would find a diverse crop. I mean, we have been wiped out by hail when corn's 5 foot tall. It is June the 2nd. Guess what goes in that field? Sorghum sudan, or sorghum. You know. I mean, you got to think outside the norm. You may be a corn and bean producer, but by God, if you're in trouble with something and you need money, you're going to find something to grow. You know. There's a young man in Kansas that came to our farm 5 years ago. He went all non-GMO. What did he do? He went out to his local feed mills and he says, I'm going to grow non-GMO corn, I'm going to grow non-GMO beans, you know, and we'll give you the best quality grain you've ever seen. Will you buy it from me for 50 cents a bushel premium? And every one of them signed up, you know. But he went and created his market. When you quit doing tillage, all that time you did sitting on your butt in the seat, you need to be in the field looking at what's going on with that crop. It's just a management change. It's a thought change. You know? If you don't want to think outside the norm, please continue to do your conventional tillage. You know, because you're not going to like what you see. And the peer pressure's hell. You know? The neighbors are always on your ass. How's come your crop don't look good? You know, when are you going out of business, David? You know? We built a new farm shop. We built a new cleaning shed. We bought a combine. We bought a tractor. David's going out of business. What about the couch? The couch. We got a couch too now. You know. But, you know, that was the thing. And all of a sudden, you know, this year, we had a lot of rye that we planted instead of the wheat because we use rye in our seed business. So we had 550 acres of rye. So guess what? all 550 acres has a cover crop with sunflowers. In our area, that's 45 fields in about a 12-mile area. And all I hear now is, my God, a lot of farmers are using cover crops. We're the only one. But I don't care. When they see them sunflowers, they think that's the greatest thing that ever happened. Now we got to look at Persilia. Persilia is a new plant. Comes out of France. It likes cool weather. One Persilia plant, if you could dig all the roots, can't fill a 5-gallon bucket. It'll go 80 inches deep in 2 months in the soil if it has no obstructions. Just imagine what that'd do for your profile. There's all kind of new things. You know, we're looking at clovers and legumes from Alaska. That only takes 27 degrees and it starts growing. Man, they grow all winter in Ohio. I don't know about here, but in Ohio, they grow all winter. You know, I think there's opportunities out there. It's just finding them. You know. Anything else, guys? Again, I thank you very much.